What up, everybody? Today is October 22nd. It's a Monday. And welcome to the first ever 14th episode of Intrigue Podcast. And today I'm throwing a little bit of curveball out there. One, for starters, this is my first podcast that I'm ever going to do solo without anybody here at all. Like, nobody talking other than me. Which I'm used to, having other people here and stuff. So excuse me if I rant or get on too crazy of rants, because today I am actually going to be talking, I'm actually kind of be doing my own MMA show for the first time ever. And as I always say here every episode, I seem to say this podcast is called Intrigued. And I just like to stay true to that name and really like to talk about what I personally find intriguing. And if I'm being honest with you guys, MMA has been one of my favorite sports for the last 10 years now going on, and I literally couldn't be any more passionate about it, truly. That's me, and yeah. So let's get into it, because this is gonna be a pretty juicy podcast. I got a lot of information for MMA and stuff, so especially I'm gonna be pretty much focused in UFC most of the time. Bellator, I do watch Bellator a lot, but it's not like the names there aren't like the greatest, and I know a lot of people, like the MMA fans out there, there's not too many. Like, we're a pretty small group out there. So everybody else is the casual fan. Like, you guys know, the Conor McGregors and the John Jones and the Brock Lesnar's in the world. So I'll try to stay somewhat hip to that, because I could talk about a lot of no-name fighters that literally nobody would ever even care about. So unless you are a diehard fan, but let's jump into this UFC 230, because for everybody that doesn't know, this is Derrick Lewis versus Daniel Cormier for the heavyweight title, which was just announced just a week ago after DC got his win at UFC 229, which was probably the most come from behind victory of all time. Last second knockout, shit was crazy, getting your ass beat the entire fight. It's a well-deserved title fight. Well, here is my thing with this DC Lewis fight. I think a lot of people are going into this. I heard a lot of people saying that if Lewis somehow pulls this upset off, that this could be the biggest upset ever in MMA history, besides Matt Serra versus GSP. And this is where I differ. I honestly, not only when it comes to this heavyweight division, These guys, anybody. You see DC knock out Stipe Miocic. You haven't seen DC knock out anybody since he was in heavyweight back in Strikeforce days. And it's like, nobody saw that coming, the knockout of Stipe. So it's like, you see, when these guys have all that weight on them as humans, like, just because you're getting bigger doesn't mean your chin can take more. It just means you're getting fucking stronger. So these guys can knock each other out with one fucking punch, as you saw Derrick Lewis getting his ass kicked at UFC 229 the entire fight, and then out of nowhere just connects with one right overhand, and then it's over. So, me personally here, I'm really questioning why DC took this fight. I think the last time we truly saw some people like Joanna Jędrzejczyk was the one that came to my mind at first. This girl had so many plans going, like she wanted to be a two-division champion, the first woman to ever be a two-division champion. Was a fight or two fights away from beating Ronda Rousey's record for most title defenses. She was really close to grabbing all that, to grabbing every one of the records in the history book. And then you go into a fight with a girl named Rose Namajunas, and look what happens. You take that left hook to the chin, and you're done. And then you haven't been the same since, and you lost it all. Or, we can go on for days about people, but like, DC, not only is he the second time two-division champ, dude goes out, knocks out Stipe, he was a champ. It was a champ versus champ, which was Raw. And like, for DC to knock, it was just absolutely mind-blowing. But then now you had your sights for a Brock Lesnar fight, which would be the biggest payday for your career ever. And you say you only want 2 fights left. And if that Brock Lesnar fight was coming up, then you only had one more. I would be looking at that John Jones. Clearly, if you win the Brock Lesnar fight, like, clearly we all know what he wants in his mind. He wants that Brock Lesnar fight, and then he wants to avenge that loss to John Jones. But then you go into taking this Derrick Lewis fight, because I'm guessing you think it's about to be easy. And truly, when the odds first opened up, we had Derrick Lewis open as at a plus 800 underdog, and I wish I'd have thrown all the money in the world that I could at that point in time, because I know it's still high, but it's down to a plus 500 underdog. And I mean, I'm not the biggest betting man in the world, but I definitely did. I did bet. The reason I bring up the Joanna versus Rose fight for this, that reminds me of this, is because, like I'm saying, DC's on the verge of getting us all, like Joanna was, and not only is DC a champion in 2 different divisions, the man's, he literally just announced the other day that not only is he commentating for the UFC, which he's doing a lot of, he's actually about to go audition to become a WWE commentator, and he's making more money now, and he's doing all these things that he just sidetracked with, and I think his plate might be getting a little too big for him, and I don't know. I don't see him taking Derrick Lewis very serious, and I could easily see Derrick Lewis maybe pulling this one out, because you look at this Conor fight against Khabib, and the reason I bring that one up is because Khabib and DC are clearly teammates, and we all knew going into that fight that Khabib just had to watch out for that left hand the first 2 rounds. And he did a great job, and he destroyed him. And if that fight somehow would have kept going, say Conor got out of that, it might have got even uglier. And my thing with this Derrick Lewis versus Conor thing is, yeah, they're both, like, Derrick Lewis is only going to knock you out, and the only way he's winning, he's knocking you out, especially against DC. There's no way he's taking him down. There's no way he's submitting him. There's no way he's doing any of this shit. And the only chance that he's got is that puncher's chance. And the difference between Derrick Lewis and Conor here is, because, I mean, DC and Khabib have as equal as level of wrestling or grappling in their divisions as you possibly can. And the difference here between Conor and Derrick is Conor has never once shown that he can knock you out late in fights, especially these 5-round fights. I mean, you've seen him completely gas out 4th round against Nate Diaz, and then that 5th round comes back and somehow just gets that second win, and just barely enough to keep him running around the ring and to get a few punches in just to outwork him, and he got that takedown late. But like there's nowhere close he's knocking you out, so Khabib would have just mopped the floor with him. Derrick Lewis just proved that he just got his ass kicked for 3 straight rounds, 3 straight brutal rounds, and the dude was absolutely gassed as he could possibly be, and he still was throwing that heat and still had enough to knock him out. So I just see DC taking Lewis down maybe the first round, maybe the first couple, and maybe the 3rd round he might like get a little tired from riding him all the first 2 rounds, and I see DC maybe taking a little bit easier on him in that 3rd round, because he's trying to get his air back, and 2, he's just probably not even worried about Derrick Lewis anymore at this point. And I could see Derrick Lewis maybe knocking him out 3rd, 4th round. I really might. Like, I might throw some money on it. I mean, shit, there's always that chance of Derrick Lewis, catching him in that 1st round. But truly, like, I mean, if you're looking just on paper, like, if I had to bet my life worth on it, I'm picking DC all day. Unless DC's fighting John Jones, I'm picking DC against pretty much anyone. But just for the fun of me, the underdog in me that just wants to see that upset, and the John Jones fan in me that wants to see DC cry again on TV, I think this is a tough one for him. I honestly, because you look at it, Derrick Lewis has nothing to lose here in this fight. He actually has everything to gain. He's getting the biggest paycheck he's ever got. He said he's getting paid more this fight than he got in his last 3 fucking fights combined. And not only after that last fight at UFC 229 did he grab, I think, an extra 400 or 500,000 followers on Instagram. This is only going to make you bigger. 2, if you lose against a Daniel Cormier on such short notice, people are going to go, oh, well, he just fought not even a month ago, not even 3 weeks ago, had a brutal fight, just got lucky enough to come back. Like, it's crazy he's even taking the fight. All this, like, you can use almost any excuse in the world if you're Derrick Lewis. Oh, I didn't have enough time to train for DC. Oh, yeah, like I just said, I just fought. I'm just tired. Like, everything in the world. And then you got DC over here who's literally putting everything on the line. Like, you kind of have to admire the guy for fighting and for saving the UFC 230 card. But here's my thing. I just don't I hate when you see these people pick up these last-second fights that have these big plans going, because then it's almost 99% of the time that we always see these big plans, these big dreams get ruined in just one little thing that you thought you could take this guy. And I'm just having this weird feeling here that Derrick Lewis is going to pull this one out and just put a rainy day on the UFC's plans, because they got the only way Brock Lesnar's coming back is if Daniel Cormier wins this fight and he still fights Brock, or if DC loses and John Jones has to beat Gustafsson. And it's the only way you're getting Brock back is UFC, and that's their main focus, is getting that huge payday. But now you're kind of fucking yourself at the UFC, because now not only did you already just announce that light heavyweight title fight, and they didn't even say it's a title fight yet, but we all know it's going to be a title fight between Jones and Gustafsson at 232, which is only 2 months away. Now say DC loses, there's no way in hell that you're going to do Gustafsson dirty or John Jones dirty by taking either of those guys out of that fight and forcing them to fight Brock Lesnar at that point. And then if you see John Jones lose to Gustafsson and DC loses to Lewis, you're never seeing Brock Lesnar come back to the WWE or the UFC. There's no way. He's not going to fight an Alexander Gustafsson. He might fight a Stipe, but it's from what the UFC's doing right now, it's looking like they're not even trying to get Stipe out there. So, and Stipe would have to get a huge victory. And truly, there's nobody, unless he's beating DC again, who else can he even beat? He's beat everybody already. You get a Cain Velasquez to come back maybe, but even at that point, he's not going to fight a Stipe. And even if he does, you're really ruined. You're looking at a Cain Velasquez who hasn't fought in, 3 years now or something ridiculous. And even then, it's just like this game evolves so damn fast. I just don't see Cain coming back in and just dominating the way he did. Being out that long, I couldn't even imagine how much it takes on a mental, toll for you, because, you were at the top of the world and you just can't get over these injuries. And it's like after years and years and years, after injury after injury after injury, it's like it's almost in the back of your head. It's like, shit, I don't even want to do this anymore. It's not worth me getting hurt. So, truly, the UFC's got everything on the line here with this DC Lewis fight, and I don't know why. I can't even get my mind wrapped around it at all, why they even booked this thing. Maybe if you're the UFC, it's going to be kind of dope if Derrick Lewis wins, but even if you see Derrick Lewis win, man, I don't know. I guess I could see Brock Lesnar coming back to fight him, just because Derrick Lewis had the balls was hot, the post-fight interview, which got him the views and everything, but it's like, even then, man, Brock Lesnar would absolutely mount the floor with Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis can't wrestle, at all. And even, say Derrick Lewis does knock out Brock Lesnar if they did fight. Then what are you doing there? Okay, so then you're making Derrick Lewis this huge guy, but Brock Lesnar, everybody's gonna be like, oh, well, why would you even have Brock Lesnar come back and fight? He's only here and there every once in a while. I don't know. I just have a hard time with this DC thing, man, because I used to love DC when he was a heavyweight, and then he turned into a John Jones rival, and John Jones has been my guy since I think it was my 17th birthday. I think he fought on my birthday against Matt Hamill, who was the deaf guy, and just completely, he got disqualified. It's the only loss ever, but he destroyed the guy, and ever since then I just knew that was going to be that dude. And yeah, like I said, DC goes down, loses twice. I know the one was called a no contest because John Jones failed the drug test or whatever, and not drug test, but technically he failed the piss test for whatever the fuck. It wasn't even a steroid or what was, but it was such a minute thing. I couldn't even tell you. I don't know, but still, regardless, it doesn't take away from the fact, or any of our minds, the fact that DC's laying there unconscious in the ring. Right after that, he's crying. DC's known for that. Unless he can fight John Jones again, these fights, any fight that he's going to be in, especially after that Stipe fight, is almost just not going to make any sense. Because one, you say you're about to retire soon. Say you do beat a Derrick Lewis. Okay, you beat a Derrick Lewis. Okay, let's be real. Derrick Lewis isn't that great of a fighter. He's got fucking heart. He's got balls, and he's got a fucking powerful right hand. But if we're looking at fighters, if you're comparing him to a DC is 20 times better. And then you got DC fighting, say DC beats Lewis, say he goes on to fight Brock Lesnar. Okay, you're fighting Brock Lesnar now. Derrick Lewis win didn't help you at all for your greatest of all time status. A Brock Lesnar win Yeah, I mean, everybody, like, all the casual fans are going to get to know you more, but at the end of the day, that's not helping your greatest of all time status. Because let's be real, last time he fought was UFC 200. He fought talk about Brock Lesnar. He fought Mark Hunt, mopped the floor with him. Mark Hunt is a dog, but, like, Mark Hunt, it was one of the best matchups you could put. He's a tiny guy. Yeah, he's got power, but if Brock Lesnar got him on the ground like he did, there was no chance of him knocking him out. And it's a safe bet. Last time you saw him, he got beat by Alistair Overeem, who Alistair's out here just getting his ass knocked out for his last, like, 6 fights. And then his fight before that, lost against Kane, got absolutely mopped with. And it's like, I don't know, man. Brock Lesnar, yes, he's huge. Yes, everybody knows him. But, like, if we're talking, like, yeah, I think his MMA career was pretty fucking impressive. Not only did you go out and have a winning record, but you became a UFC champion over legit people, like legit fucking talent. And I think for his time when he did come, it was one of the biggest achievements, especially coming from the WWE and all this stuff. Like, it was a huge achievement. But if we're looking at all-time greats, Brock Lesnar's nowhere close to even the top 10 heavyweights of all time. And that's just my opinion. So then say DC gets through that. So then what are you going to do? So you hope John Jones wins against Gustafsson. You know if he wins against Gustafsson, he's going to go after DC. But here's my thing. I don't even want to see a DC John Jones fight. I mean, the only way I'd even watch it is a heavyweight just because DC's got a little bit more power now. And it's another belt for John Jones to go grab. But here's my thing. Like, DC's got to win against two, like, this is just tough because I'd see him losing against Lewis. Like I said, I just see him losing against that. And if he does lose that, what's next for DC? Not only did you just get stripped of your light heavyweight belt for the John Jones and Gustafsson fight, you would lose your heavyweight belt. I don't see, unless it's DC Lewis 2, which, like Lewis, like I said, like Lewis gets lucky and knocks it, like after he's just getting ragdolled the entire fight, pulls out another come from behind victory at the 4th, 5th round, then yeah, you might see a second fight. But, like, other than that, who the fuck do you want to see DC fight? Like, truly, like, even if we see him fight good old John Jones again, chances are, like, in my opinion, I think 10 times out of 10, if these guys fight, John Jones is going to win. Not only did he just outclass him the first time with all mix of wrestling and everything in the first fight, the second fight, they just strictly said, fuck it, we're going to stand up and do this shit. And John Jones out here knocked him out. So, okay, so then what? We see... So let's look at it this way. So we say DC gets through Lewis, DC gets through Brock, John Jones gets through Gustafsson. They finally meet up again for a third time. So then I heard this argument the other day that somebody was making. It was actually Brendan Schaub, who runs his own little MMA thing, which is one of my Big Brown Breakdown. It was a Big Brown Breakdown, the Below the Belt podcast, one of my favorite ones. He was making this claim that if DC comes back, or to beat Lewis, beats Brock, and he comes back to beat John Jones as a heavyweight, then they would say DC is the greatest of all time ever in fighting. And I just find that hard to believe. Like, I already went over the last DC John Jones fights, both of them. Even if DC were to pull out that third fight against John Jones somehow, I don't care if it's the most devastating fashion of all time. I do not care. You're still down in your mind, DC, the way that we all know that you're haunted by this shit. You're down 2-1 in your eyes. There's literally no way in hell that you could ever go down as the greatest of all time being down 2-1 to somebody, especially being finished. I mean, I know the first fight didn't get finished, but he got just outclassed the entire time. And then the second fight, he did get finished. One of the most brutal finishes of all time, one of the most iconic ones, one of the most infamous post-fight, interviews ever where he's crying. It wasn't an interview, but just the shot that he had. It was just him crying as a DC. I don't know. I just don't see it, man. I love DC too. I really think he's the man. I just don't see it, man. I just don't think beating Stipe, who was maybe arguable. If Stipe would have beat DC, he would have went down as the greatest of all time heavyweight for sure. But then you get DC that beats him. But now so say DC beats Lewis and Brock Lesnar at heavyweight. Those two, like we've already said, are mediocre heavyweights at best. If I'm being honest, that's just me being honest. and that's not going to do anything to your greatest of all time status. The John Jones fight, yeah, it definitely would solidify that, like, you are the man, like, you're definitely good, but, like, you'd have to beat him twice in a row just to get it to that 2-2, and then you'd have to beat him a third time. I don't see these guys fighting 5 times. There's no way. Like, and DC wants to retire after, I think March, he said, or before May or something like that. So I don't know. I just don't see DC going down as the GOAT. I mean, I wouldn't consider him my GOAT. I know Anderson Silva got popped and stuff, but, like, if we're looking at it, like, there's Anderson Silvas out there, the John Jones in the world that haven't lost. A perfect guy, actually, let's bring him in right now. Let's talk about Max Holloway, because this shit's been pissing me off, too. Because Max Holloway's my man. One of the greatest, truly one of the best. Ever since that Conor McGregor loss at 21 years old, he's been on a fucking tear. And not only did he go through the greatest featherweight of all time in everybody's opinion of Jose Aldo, like, a lot of people are like, the Conor haters out there are saying, oh, well, Conor knocked him out, got lucky with that one punch. That's arguable. Those quick finishes, those never really tell, like, who's the better fighter. It's just, oh, shit, you got caught. But then here's where it gets crazy. Max, not only did he put on 2 fucking classics against Jose Aldo, he absolutely demolished the man. Made him look like he was just an everyday guy. It was those 2 performances. I was pissed that we had to see the Jose versus Max too. I know Frankie pulled out and shit, but, like, Max destroyed his ass that bad the first fight. I knew it was gonna go, if not the same way, but maybe even worse the second fight, which it did. Probably was even worse. And it's like he's out here proving to everyone that he's one of the greatest right now. Like, it's hit his young age too. And then now he's got this fight against Brian Ortega, who is one of the submission kings. Like, everybody knows this, one of the greatest BJJ artists in the world. But it's like, shit, son. I'm looking at all these UFC fighters talking about how Ortega's about to be the next big thing, and Ortega's about to beat Max, and Ortega's the guy, and everybody's just looking over Max. And it's like, yeah, I get that he had to pull out against Ortega just a couple months ago for whatever the fuck happened. But, like, damn, there's no way in hell you're overlooking a Max Holloway. Like, there's no way. I know Brian Ortega's a dog. He did put Frankie on his ass, knocked him out. But, like, let's be real, though. Max fucking Holloway, the dude's a fucking animal. The Hawaiian King, man. Like, the dude does not stop going forward. Nobody's outpacing him. Even if you take him to the ground, he's still got great submission defense, great ground and pound that we saw against Jose Aldo. You've never seen Jose get beat up like that, ever. And you see him just, he had nothing, he had no answers. No answers for Max Holloway. And Max kind of reminds me of that, the old Tony Ferguson of the featherweight division, just because, you know, Tony in lightweight just nonstop going forward, nonstop doing everything. Like, he's got the best gas tank in the world, and that's just where I see Max Holloway. But let's continue this UFC 230. So then we go to the co-main event, which was actually supposed to be DC's training partner in Luke Rockhold, but just a couple days ago, Luke pulled out of his second fight in a row, this time being against Chris Weidman, which was supposed to be their rematch, which the first fight, Luke, I mean, we saw him get the ground and pound finish against Weidman, but I watched that fight again. It was free on YouTube the other day. I was watching that fight again, and you kind of forget how close of a fight that was, up until I think it was the third round when Chris Weidman decided to throw a spinning heel kick, which he's never thrown before in his life, and gave up his back, and it was just all ugly from there. But one little mistake was what caused that fight to end for Weidman, and I was really intrigued to see this fight, because you're looking at two dudes who were both champions originally, and then have just been kind of on a losing streak lately. Weidman got back in the winning streak against the winning column against Kelvin Gastelum, but it was just almost a little too much for Kelvin. He was just a little too big. But I thought this would have been really big to see. And then Rockhold pulls out, and this is where I get the skeptical hippo eyes, because not only does he pull out, But then he makes an effort to go on to Ariel Helwani's MMA show podcast, and he went out of his way to make up 3 different injuries that he had just that caused him to pull out of this fight, which was, I think, a left shin infection, sprained right knee, and then he even added that he had a broken nose in grappling or something a couple of days prior. And here's where I get a little skeptical here. Luke Rockhold, again, like I said with this whole DC thing where he's got a little too much going on his plate, Luke Rockhold, ever since he was a champion, people are forgetting this man's a Gucci model, fucking Versace model, like all these crazy brands he's out here just modeling for. And I mean, I've seen him on a few, like, I'm pretty sure dating shows and stuff. Like, the dude, and I think I've heard too that he's even got offers for Hollywood and stuff. Like, the dude doesn't need to fight. Like, he's one of those guys out there that has made such a big name for himself in the MMA world that he's starting to do other things he's passionate about. And which brings me back to the Bisping loss. Before that, he beat Chris Weidman to become a champion, and he went on like a 6-fight winning streak in the UFC, which after he lost his first fight against a steroided up Vitor Belfort. But then he goes on a 6-fight winning streak. Absolutely, after that spinning heel kicks, mollywops Weidman, destroys him, becomes a champion, and then he gets thrown in with Bisping again, which he destroyed Bisping the first time they fought. So he's overlooking a Michael Bisping, who's all done. You know, everybody thought he was done for. Gets clipped. We all know. It was one of the biggest upsets ever. And then this is where we start going down with Luke Rockhold. Not only did it take him over a year and a half to get back into the ring after he lost his belt, he comes back against a David Branch who has been out of the UFC for a while. And I've watched him ever since his Walt Harris fight, I think it was. Or might not be Walt Harris. Might have been Devin Harris. One of those guys from, it was probably from like 2011 maybe. They had one of like a really good fight, but he got kicked out of the UFC for a couple years. He comes back, just throwing no name to Luke Rockhold. And he goes out there and gets rocked in the first round, and you know, it just looks like, oh shit, everything's going to shit. And then he finally uses his great ground skills and takes the guy down and finishes him. But then he comes back. They throw him to Yoel Romero for the vacant belt, just because good old Whitaker got hurt and pulled out against pulled out against Rockhold. So Rockhold got to fight Romero again, or not again, but at least for the belt. And that fight was pretty fucking good, but we all know Romero we just got the better of him, knocked him out in the 3rd or 4th round, I can't remember. But it was clean knockout, one of the most brutal finishes I've ever seen, especially that one uppercut after Rockhold was already knocked out against the fence. Woo! One of the ugliest things I've ever seen. But then, so that was his last fight. So then there was rumors of him moving up to light heavyweight to fight Alexander Gustafsson. I'm pretty sure they booked that fight, and then he pulled out pretty fucking fast after that happened. And this is where I start getting the skeptical hippo eyes, because not only did he pull out of that fight, it was right around the time that Yoel Romero decided, I'm going to go up to light heavyweight. So now you just lost to this fucking monster of Yoel Romero. So that was what's going to put you up to light heavyweight, and that DC's going up to heavyweight. You didn't want to fight each other. But then Yoel Romero comes back up to the light heavyweight. And then out of nowhere, you drop right back down to your normal weight class. And then, not only did you just pull out of that Gustafsson fight, then it takes you over, I want to say 8 months to get back, to even get into a contract for a fight, which is this fight that you were just going to have with Weidman. And then you pull out of this fight again. And it's almost like, this is me personally here, because you see all these guys get hurt. Like you saw the Max Holloway get hurt against, before his fight with Brian Ortega, and you didn't hear shit. Still to this day, we only have, our opinions of, or our guesses of what we think happened. But Max Holloway, there's nothing that came out of his camp that showed what happened. You hear that all the time. People pull out of fights, you'll never hear what happened. But this man, Luke Rockhold, goes out of his way within 24 hours of him pulling out of a fight to talk to one of the biggest MMA shows in the world, just to tell him 3 different injuries that you're making. Like, come on now, guys. Like, I'm talking, like, we're talking excuses that my friends make whenever they're trying to like get out of lifting or something for a day. Like, oh, bro, see, my back's sore. Oh, see, the way my elbow's feeling. Like, coming up with multiple excuses before. Like, if you're truly hurt or if you're truly sick, there's no excuses you need to make at all. And I just think Luke Rockhold's becoming too big of a name outside of the UFC. I think he's making more money than he's realizing. Like, it's not worth him to go out there and get his ass kicked. And we see it time after time after time where these fighters aren't hungry anymore. They're not struggling anymore. They don't need these paychecks anymore like they needed to have to provide for their family and everything. And then they're like 1 foot out, 1 foot in. And as soon as we see fighters start doing this, that's when you see them get their ass kicked or they're just not in it anymore. And especially what I'm saying with this Conor thing, with him taking 2 years out, this isn't the NBA in the mid-90s where the best player in the damn game can leave to go to a different game in baseball and then a couple years later come back and then win 3 years in a row, 3 championships in a row, Michael Jordan. Like, this, you can't be doing that in MMA today. Like, this game's so freshly new and we're evolving so much as humans and all these different, and it can only go up from here. So any single one of these stars take 2 years out, other than like a Brock Lesnar who's a heavyweight, which, I mean, because heavyweight's pretty fucking bare bones, but still, DC is way better than Brock. But like, you see these guys take a couple years out and go do their other stuff, come back in, like, the game's so much further than them now. Like, you're looking at all the, like, let's be fucking real here. I'm a huge Conor dick rider. Like, huge. Like, I fucked with Conor forever. Ever since he started, like, he's always calling what victories he's gonna do. Ever since the Dustin Poirier fight, for sure, was like when I first got hooked on it, their original fight. But he had Diego Brandao or whatever he fought. I think that was actually the one. That was the fight before that got me real hooked on him. But then you see him, he's hungry. He's a poor man. Like, we all know his story. Like, he literally was gonna quit. He was a janitor. He was literally gonna quit MMA because he wasn't making the break or anything. And then a week later he gets called by the UFC and goes back in. But it's like, you see these guys, man, start off hungry, start off poor, start off like just needing to do something, get all this money, get all these, advertisements, get all the names out there. And yeah, man, it's like the same guy, the place that you were 5 years ago, you're going to fight that guy that's in that spot now, as in like a Habib, yeah, he's undefeated and stuff, but his name's not big, he's not marketable just because he'll lay on you for a while, compared to a Conor knockout. Like, and Habib had something to prove, because you're out here fighting all these people in lightweight, you're fighting all these fucking killers, and Conor is being said he's the greatest of all time, and just coming in and everybody thinks he's just going to start you and stuff. Like, the dude was hungrier than Conor. You could just tell he was going to win that fight. Like, I honestly thought that Conor had the puncher's chance. Like, I'm giving Derrick Lewis here, but I'm giving Derrick Lewis a lot higher of a chance to beat DC than I give Conor versus Habib, because Conor had to knock him out within the first couple minutes, and he just didn't. But my thing, this is where we go with this Conor thing. If you were Conor McGregor, where do you go next? Really, you gotta think this out. I know a lot of people think that he should get the Habib. Like, if you're a Conor fan, you want him to get that Habib rematch because you want like the Diaz thing. You want to see him win again. But if you're being realistic with Conor McGregor here, and we got to be completely honest with ourselves, you just took a 2-year layoff. You went out, fought the best lightweight that you could possibly fight. Worst matchup for you. Yeah, other than the first round, I would say he didn't get destroyed. But after that first round, the second and fourth, he got absolutely ragdolled, manhandled, like pretty fucking ugly. So, in my opinion, I don't see that Habib-Conor fight having any other change of, other than maybe like Conor, maybe instead of getting finished, maybe pushing it to the 5th round, and maybe lasting till the bell rings. But it's ugly. Like, it's probably 10-8 the last 4th and 5th round, 10-8 for Habib. It's pretty fucking ugly. So then, now look. So, you're not going to fight a Tony Ferguson, who deserves to fight Habib, in my opinion. Because if you just lost to Habib, which Habib's a man on the ground, but Tony fucking Ferguson let's be real here. Not only has that man got the most awkward striking I've ever seen in my life, but it fucking worked for him. 2, he's got the best fucking gas tank in the division. He's got arguably the best submission game in the division. I would say so. Man's under Eddie Bravo, who's like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu genius. Like, me personally, I think Tony would be Khabib. So then, let's go down the ranks here. So then, you can't, if you're Conor McGregor, you're not fighting a young, hungry dude in Al Iaquinta or a Kevin Lee, because those guys are fucking dogs. Those guys are coming up. Both of those guys, we saw Al Iaquinta give a better fight to Khabib than Conor gave Khabib. Yes, it was a late notice fight for Khabib and Al. I get it. I understand that. But then you got a Kevin Lee who just had an absolute fucking war with Tony Ferguson, who just put on a fucking classic against Edson Barbosa. Even showed that he's got a fucking chin by taking that fucking spinning heel kick and still somehow surviving. So then you go down to a Dustin Poirier, who's supposed to fight your arch rival Nate Diaz. Yes, I know you beat Dustin already, but I don't know if you guys have been watching Dustin's fights, because I know he's been pretty big lately, but like ever since he lost to Conor, he has not lost. He lost one time to Michael Johnson. But other than that, like, the dude has been killing. He's got his ground. He just got his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't see Conor kind of controlling on the ground at all. I don't see it at all, because I know that's what he used to do back in his day. Take Max Holloway down, take people down, just kind of ride him. But, like, I don't see him knocking out Dustin anymore. Like, he got him that first time they fought at featherweight, but now that Dustin went up to 155, I think he's looking even better than he ever has. So, yeah, I think it would be a cool fight for Conor. I think that might be his best fight to maybe get back in the winning column. But nobody's going to pay for that. I mean, everybody's going to pay for Conor to fight, but you're not going to make money on that one. Okay, so let's say you fight Nate Diaz again. Here's always been my thing with this Conor versus Nate shit. Yes, Nate Diaz put on a classic against, they both put on classic wars, the first two fights. The first fight, clearly Conor knocked him down, I think twice in that first round. Looked pretty good, but then that second round he just gassed the fuck out. Diaz hit him with that nice one that Conor went, oh shit, you're done. Like, you could literally see it on his face. He was like, fuck, I'm done. And then he tried to take him down, gets choked out. Second fight, absolute fucking war. People still make the argument that Diaz won. You can make the argument that Conor won. I don't think any of them really got fucked on it. But I think it could have went either way. But here's my thing. If we look at Nate Diaz, and we look at his true career overall, yes, the Diazes are like some of my favorite athletes of all time. I love how they're like themselves. They smoke. You know, they're badass motherfuckers. Like, everybody fucks with the Diazes. But if we're being fucking real here, they have never beat big people. They've always got to the show. They've always got to the championship. They never win. We saw Nate lose to Benson Henderson bad. We saw Nick Diaz get his ass kicked by GSP and Anderson Silva. And it was just like, and it wasn't a title fight for Nick Diaz in that Silva fight, but still was one of the biggest fights he's ever had. And they just get to these big people and they just lose. Like, they're always in the middle. They're never high ranked. They're never the lowest ranked. Sometimes, shit, I think Nate Diaz was unranked when he fought Conor the first time. You know, if he was ranked, he was like 13 or something. But I think he's at like 9 now. It's like, okay, so you fight Nate Diaz again. Okay, so say you lose. Okay, say you win. What's your next move? You just beat a Nate Diaz, which sadly at this point in time, his Dustin Poirier fight which would have been the biggest thing for Conor, because if Nate could have had that fight with Dustin and Nate could have somehow beat Dustin, that would have been the biggest thing for Nate and for Conor. It would have built their fights even crazier. Okay, but now you got a Nate Diaz who hasn't fought since your second fight with each other. Okay, so what are you gonna do now? So you say you fight him, say you win. Who's that gonna get you? Yeah, I don't think you deserve a title fight after that. I know you somehow got one after you beat him the first time, but you beat Eddie Alvarez. It's not like you lost to him before. It was your first time. You're like, okay, well, fuck. You go out there, put on a classic against Eddie, whoop his ass. But now it's different because before you fought Diaz again, you fought the champion and you got your ass beat clearly. Like, it was a clear beat. It wasn't like the Diaz fight with Conor. It was like, oh, well, one of them, he could have won. It wasn't that. It was clear cut. You got beat. You got finished. So now we look. Say you get beat by Nate Diaz. What's your next move? I don't think you're getting a fourth fight out of that. Because, one, I think people are about sick of it already. I know people would pay for the third just because it's the tiebreaker. But even if Conor wins against Nate Diaz, nobody's going to pay for the fourth. And I truly don't think if Conor loses twice in a row, technically three, he lost to Floyd. But say he goes out, loses to Khabib, loses to Nate. It's like, dude, at this point in time, you went from being the number one person to the ever in combat sports, which you still are currently. You lost to an undefeated guy, which you got going for you. It's your only thing you got going for you currently is, oh, well, nobody's beat him. He's 27-0. Nobody's beat him. Also, I didn't fight for 2 years, so it's not like I had ring rust. You could use these, but like this next fight, everything's on the fucking line. Literally everything's on the line. Because one, like I said before, out of all sports, currently all the mainstream sports, MMA is the freshest one. It's the one that's arguably evolving the most just because it's so fresh. We're seeing new shit all the time. It's not like it's been around 50, 60 years where everybody's like, oh, I've seen that before. So at this point in time, not only is everybody evolving, and if, like we said, you took your 2-year layoff, anybody takes that 2-year layoff, you come back, chances are you're not going to look good at all. You're going to be shocked by how good these guys are. So like that's gonna prove that, like, okay, your time was 2 years ago, or this time he might fight a year from now. Who knows with these suspensions? Could be. It's okay. So he fought once in 3 years MMA. Goes into his next fight. If he loses that, yes, it proves that MMA is like, okay, this game's evolving. You can't take 2 years. Your time was a while ago. 2, his star is burning dim. Like, it's dimmer. Like, it's definitely bright as fuck, brighter than anybody in the UFC. But if you lose this next fight, Conor, like, here's what's going on here. That Proper 12 whiskey, all that funding and everything, it's probably out the books. Like, I know you signed that contract for a 4 fight. I can't remember which, 6 or 4 fight contract with them with UFC. And yeah, I'm sure you got some crazy thing on there where, like, you got partial ownership and you got your Proper 12 like on the UFC mat and everything. Like, it's literally on there. It's dope as fuck. I think you got McGregor promotions on there. Maybe not. I don't think you got it on the MMA ring, UFC ring, but I know you had it, or Octagon. I know you had it in the Floyd fight, but it's like, okay, so you lose again, second time in MMA. You're never getting a Floyd fight. You're not going to be able to fight a boxing fight, and if you do, it's going to be a kind of shitty person, and you're not going to make money, like, at all. 2, who's going to be paying for your pay-per-views next time? Arguably, you're probably not going to main event, if we're being real. I mean, damn, dude. Like, you go from calling the shots to literally forced probably to retire. Like, honestly, like we saw with Ronda. Ronda just took it a bad way. But, like, you see these people out here that literally just go on these massive winning streaks, build a massive name, and once you like reach a certain level of success, especially in a sport, like, you're held to a certain standard. If you go out there and get knocked out 2 straight fights, like we're talking Ronda Rousey here, or if Conor goes out and gets finished again 2 straight fights, like, you're almost forced to retire because you're not taking a chance for your market, whatever market that you even have left to pump out. Like, you lose that if you go out there and lose that 3rd fight or get finished for a 3rd fight. So you're damn near forced to retire just to keep any name for you for the rest of your life. Because, like, we're seeing Ronda with the WWE. If she would have lost a 3rd time, are we seeing Ronda Rousey going to the UFC ever again? Or the WWE, I'm trying to say? Do you think they'd sign her? If she would have been like, okay, Well, instead of me fighting after me fighting Amanda Nunes and going to the WWE, let me stick around and try to fight. Let's look at like a Raquel Pennington or something, or like somebody. Like it could be any girl out there. Like maybe even says maybe not drop weight, but go up in weight. I don't know what the fuck she would do. Say she fights anybody and goes out there and gets beat by a no-namer. Like Amanda Nunes was already no-name, but at least she was the champion. And it's like, Holly Holm, you made her a name. It's like that third fucking fight, if you lose, you lose everything. Like nobody's gonna want to pay for you, especially the way that you take losses. I can't believe people even said, fuck it, we're gonna take her after she cried and literally went on a hiatus for months after a loss. Like, bitch, we all are in the sport. Like, you're gonna, if you lose, just be a girl, be a woman about it, be a man about it. Like, shake somebody else's hand. It's a game. You got paid. Guess what? You got paid more than anybody did in that card. Like, you're still fine, girl. Like, Jesus. Instead of maybe like crying and stuff, maybe try to get like the commentating job. Who knows? Like, you could try something out there. But she just like, yeah, I guess it's women. I'm not trying to be rude, but like emotions or hormones and stuff are a lot crazier for women. I get it. But it's like, come on now, like literally to cry like that, like as bad as you did. Like, yeah, we all know. I just made fun of DC for crying. Like, don't get me wrong, we would all cry in certain situations, but like to be down about something like that, like come on now, that just shows a lot who you are. And although yeah, Conor's out here still acting like he hasn't lost or anything, but like if you lose again, bud, like shit gets crazy there. And me personally, I don't want to see Conor lose again because that's as a fan, you kind of know that the days are over for him. But I don't know. I don't see where Conor can go after this. Like, it's going to be a really tough one. And I hope he picks something that's smart for him, that he knows he's going to get a victory. Or if he's really going to just knows his fighting days are coming to the end, maybe talk that shit, maybe get the biggest payday you possibly can get, and then just maybe get out. But, I mean, the dude, especially after this Khabib fight, he's for sure probably set for life. Like, I know the Floyd stuff, he had all the money in the world, but I still think he could have blown it, especially the way he's been acting with all these fines and shit. He still could have probably blown it. Like, you see Mike Tyson. There's reports out there Floyd fucking even almost had the reason he's been coming back and stuff because he's broke. But who knows? You never know. We're never in this situation, so I guess I can't talk on it. But this brings me to my last thing I just want to talk about real quick for the end of the episode. So I was thinking about the Artem Lobov and Michael Johnson fight that is happening now, UFC Fight Night 139 or whatever the fuck it is now, 138. So for everybody that doesn't know out there, which I doubt there's very people that don't know, after the Conor Khabib aftermath, like that, the fight after the fight, long story short, the dude that hit Conor from behind was supposed to fight Conor's like left-hand man, one of his biggest training guys that's actually in the UFC, Artem Lobov, and they pulled the Russian. It was Khabib's guy from the fight, because he, all this stuff, and they're talking about firing him and everything. Well, it was kind of like, I just kind of wanted to see that fight go out because I really wanted to see how big this Conor Khabib thing is, and I really wanted to see how, like how many numbers you're really bringing in on them fight nights, especially since the fight nights aren't ever bringing money in, and like nobody wants to see Michael Johnson versus Artem Lobov. Like, I'm not trying to be a dick, but like they have no prior history at all. Michael Johnson's ranked way higher. Like, there's literally no point to probably take the fight if you're Michael Johnson. But like if you're Artem Lobov, you're 14-13. Literally nobody in the UFC's got that record other than you, and the only reason you're even in it is because of Conor. But so I'm looking at the NBA and I'm looking at the NFL, and I'm watching, especially yesterday was Sunday. I'm watching all these football players and shit, and the big difference that I can tell in all these sports is like the NFL and the NBA, they're almost like I guess volunteering themselves to like just put their players in front of the organization almost in a way. Like, I know the NFL is a little different, especially now with like the whole Colin Kaepernick shit and stuff, but like for the most part, all the household names and shit, like the NFL makes sure that those guys are on a different pedestal. And like the NBA, like Jesus, might be the worst of all time. Like you got look at all that. Any big name player in the league, like LeBron, CP3, Giannis, KD, Steph, like you could literally name 20 people, 25, 30 people in the league now, maybe even 40 players in the league now. They're like literally kind of, they're so big, marketable, like they're so marketable that they pretty much do whatever the fuck they want. And that is the biggest thing that I think UFC fails to do yet, almost in a way, other than literally 3 fighters, if you really think about it. Like, if you look how dirty they did all their great guys that, like, coming, like, they're huge nowadays, like, or because of that made the UFC big, as in, like, the Chuck Liddells, the Randy Couture's, the Vitor Belfort's, all, like, anybody. You can look at all the Sakuraba from Pride, like, all those guys in Pride, like, look at anybody from the beginning of the MMA days. And those guys, like, they, other than us fans just giving them love, like, what the fuck has the UFC or Pride or any of those organizations ever done for those guys now? Like, they're absolutely nobodies if you really look at it. And, like, I get it, too, back in the NFL days and shit, the same way, but it's like, especially nowadays, like, if you're a LeBron James or if you're a Derrick Rose or if you're any of the, like, especially Derrick Rose is one of the greatest ones I could ever use. Although he is coming back right now and he's looking pretty good at the beginning of the season, Derrick Rose arguably is never going to be as good as what he was if he didn't get hurt. And luckily for him, like, you know, he got these shoe deals and stuff because the NBA really marketed him. And, like, it's like he's set for life regardless. It didn't matter if he got hurt. Like, the UFC, man, like, other than if you're Ronda Rousey, Brock Lesnar, or Conor McGregor, like, they are so tight ship. Like, Anderson Silva, he's old as shit now. They don't give a fuck about him. GSP, like, they'll let him get his fights, but, like, truly they're not, like, killing to have him back or anything like that. They're not doing anything to, like, make sure he's set. Like, I know these paydays and stuff now, of course, but, like, compared to what they make each fight, like, or each card, compared to what they pay the fighters, it's the lowest in any professional sport. And it's just sad, like, 'cause it's like, I really feel like they can make a way bigger market and bring a lot more in if they would just, especially now with this ESPN deal, if they would just start letting these guys, like, really market themselves. Like, the Diaz's are, people don't, like, I know a lot of, like, MMA fans and stuff realize how big the Diaz's are, but for the casual fan that really doesn't know, like, yeah, you might not hear about Nick Diaz ever, but, like, and I know you only hear about Nate Diaz because of Conor, but it's like, those guys are huge. They have one of the biggest followings in the world, and they have absolutely no backup from the UFC at all, from the organization that they fight for. And, I don't know. That's just my food for thought. Had me thinking. But, shit, yeah, I'm a call this one. This is the first MMA breakdown that I've done, and it was absolute blast. Shit, literally talked for 53 minutes without even stopping. I didn't know I could do that, but shit, look at me. Alrighty, but thank you guys for listening to Intrigued, and this is Stephen Musteris, and I thank you guys so much. Have a good one.